Hi, this is a little tutorial about switch layers to hopefully explain some things to help people. So in this example I have a little lion that's walking, and the way this is done is I've got a set of images within a switch layer. The switch layer is called lion, and as I click on the different images you'll see the different positions of the lion. Now what's called a switch layer is actually a folder, and all of the images are in that folder. Now the image that is the active image is shown as enabled, and the other ones are kind of grayed out. And as I move the time slider marker, you'll see that the different image, whichever one is active, becomes noticeable. So what's happening is that in the timeline each individual image is becoming active. Now if I move my mouse cursor over the timeline, the image that is active is shown up in a tooltip. Another thing that you can do is click on the tool, the special tool, and as I scrub over you'll see up here under active child, you'll see what is the currently active image. Now if you look carefully, the first image starts on frame 1, and then the next one starts on frame 7, and then the next one on 13. So you see that every 6 frames is when the lion is walking, when the image change. And then on frame 48 we just have a cycle that points back to the beginning. So to actually show you how to create this animation, I'm going to go to clear out the animation, go to frame 1, and then all I do is right click on the switch layer folder and select an image that I want to show. Now in this animation, the way the images are ordered is I would start with the bottom one. That's just how the images happen to load. So then what I would do is go to frame 7, click on the switch layer folder and select a different image, and continue doing that for each of the images. Now instead of right clicking on the folder, I could select this special tool, and then I can select the layer up here. So let me go to 19 and select the next layer. So we continue that process for all of the images, and that's how we get the animation. So once I've selected all of them, I just go to this frame 48, and here I'll add another keyframe. It really doesn't matter which one, because I'm going to turn it into a cycle by right clicking and selecting cycle. And then I just say go back to frame 1. And so now that creates a walk cycle for this lion. Okay, so the important point here is not about cycles, but it's just about that I can select any of the layers here within the switch layer, and that will then position it at any time in the timeline. Okay, so I've hidden the lion and now brought up another set of images that are hands, and I use this for my hand motions, and you can see there's all different kinds of hand positions associated with that. And if you look carefully, you'll see I've got these circles, but those are just reference layers, and I can turn them off, but they help me center things up. And what I will do when I actually bring this into a character is I have a bone associated with the wrist, and then just can move it, and it will move the image. But here the point is we're just talking about the switch layers. And so if you look over here, you see the right hand and the left hand is just a folder that has lots and lots of images in them. Okay, and so the point is if you show them like this, you see all of them at once. So all we have to do is go to the right hand, for example, and convert it to a switch. So what the switch layer is saying to us is, this folder is saying, put a whole bunch of things in there, and if it's a switch layer, I will only show you one of those images at a time. So as we click on the different images, we can see what they look like, and you can edit each individual one if it was a vector. Now these happen to be bitmaps, so I don't edit them here, but I can edit them in an art program and then bring them in. And of course I can do the same thing for the left hand. So at any point in time, if I want to change the hand position, I just move the marker to whatever frame that I want to change that hand, and I can then change it to a different hand, and you'll see a keyframe has been put there. And I can do it at another keyframe as well if I want. So all that's happening as you see in this switch layer, when I get to frame 12, it says, okay, now show a different one, and then switch to a different one. So that's what these keyframes are saying. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to go to the right hand and I expand that one, and you see all of these different frames, and I'm just going to copy them, and I'm going to rename them like mouths, like a mouth, to show something. Okay, so I've renamed some of these layers to standard mouth phoneme layers. It's important to notice that the capitalization matters. Etc. is not capitalized, and neither is rest. And the naming is very important because a number of programs, if you use other programs to do lip sync, it will expect these particular names. Now I've got an audio file that says, "Come on, let's go."
Come on, let's go.
And it starts on frame 5 and ends at frame 24. Now Anime Studio does have, if you click on the switch layer, it does have a switch tab that allows you to set the audio sync source. And you would set "Come on, let's go." But if you have the 64-bit version of Anime Studio Pro 11, then this won't work. It will actually cause it to crash. 32-bit version will work, but 64-bit it won't. You can also use Papagayo to create a switch layer, and it will do that. But I'm not going to do that right now. Instead, I have a script that I've written that does lip sync, and it allows you to specify the start frame and the end frame, and then you enter the text string, and it will put the frames there. Now, if we play that back with the audio, here's what it looks like.
Come on, let's go.
Now, of course, that doesn't look like it's talking, but the point is that the switch layer doesn't know anything about what the images look like, the lip sync. It doesn't know anything about that. It's just looking for images that have a particular name, AI, E, etc., FV, and things like that. So the switch layer is just a folder that contains any number of images, and they don't have to be in any particular sequence. You can just select between different images. It's just a folder that contains them and allows you to select one image at a time. Now let's go back to our lion, and in this particular case the images were in a sequence to cause that walking appearance. So when they're in a sequence, you can call that frame by frame animation. Now Anime Studio always had the ability to do frame by frame animation within the switch layers, but in version 11 they've made it a little bit easier by creating a specific layer called frame by frame. So if I go to the layer tool and select frame by frame, it will insert a layer. Now I should have done this at frame 0. Okay, so now we're at frame 0, and we've got this switch layer. Now it's a frame by frame layer, but it is a switch layer. You can see the difference in terms of the icon, and you can see it looks like frame after frame after frame. But if we click on this ellipsis and we bring up the information about the layer, we see it is a switch layer. And if I click on that switch tab, it just has this checkbox, frame by frame drawing, added in. So it has a little bit more capability than a standard switch layer. Okay, so what is that capability? Well, if we look down to the left, we see these buttons and this number, and those are there if you have a frame by frame switch layer. So it's similar, but it has this additional capability. Now if we look back at the lion, remember we started on frame 1, and then every 6 frames we added a new frame. So let's do that for this new frame by frame layer, and we'll start at 1, and in this box we've set that to 6 so that as I click on the plus, it will create a new frame, And what that has done, it has created a layer in there that I can start drawing on. So for simplicity, I'm just going to kind of outline the lion a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is click on the plus. But because I've got this 6 in here, what you'll see is that it will advance the timer 6 frames, and now it will create a new layer, and so I can draw on that one. So I will again just kind of outline this lion, and I'll do it again. And let's do it one more time. And now what you'll see is you're creating this animation in a frame-by-frame fashion. Let me go ahead and turn off the lion, and you can kind of see his outline is changing. Now, of course, you want to have a real nice drawing in reality, but that's what the frame-by-frame layer is doing. But like any switch layer, I can go to any frame and select any layer as the next one. So I can select any particular layer that I want. Now frame 1 didn't, it was in the 0 time frame, so if I choose that it didn't really have anything on it, so even if the layer is blank, it will select it. All you're doing is telling it which layer to show. So coming back to a summary or conclusion, all a switch layer allows you to do is you've got lots and lots of images, and the switch layer will allow you to just select one of those images at a time in any particular order that you want. So that's what it is with switch layers. Hope that helps.